In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a SQL injection attack so that you understand why it's a bad thing and get some insight into how to protect against it. And before I show you this, I'm giving you full notice that if you do this and you're not authorized to be doing this on somebody's site, you will be arrested. People check web logs and server logs, and what I'm about to show you, if used improperly, is a felony. So you will not only be arrested, but you will possibly be put in jail for a long time. So bottom line, don't do this. But as a professional, it's important that you understand exactly what's going on, because SQL injection attacks are one of the most commonly exploited security vulnerabilities there are right now. So I'm going to go to http://glasstv/index.php question title equals, and then go ahead and give it a title. So that should be the name of a television series. And I grabbed this data is about a year old or so. It's 2018. It's about a year old. So it only has season 1 of Westworld. But what I have is the rating for season 1 episodes. And if you hover over one of the little dots, it shows you the title of the episode, what season and episode it is, the rating, and total number of votes. And you can also click on a particular episode and it will take you to the IMDb page for that particular episode. So fun. And for multiple seasons, so for example, I'll do The Simpsons, because we looked at doing episode ratings for The Simpsons at one point. Year by year, there were 30 some odd seasons of The Simpsons. Each season is differently colored, and there are little regression lines on here, and you can sort of see overall what I was talking about when I did that other video about the drop-off in ratings. So anyways, if you want to play with that, feel free. What I'm going to show you today is something different. So what if there was a login system associated with this site? So for example, login.php. And here's a web page I grabbed from my PHP course that allows you to log in or register. And the information is stored in SQL Server database. So you can create a new account or you can log into an existing account. In the PHP course, I show you how to do this the right way so that it's safe. But I also created a version for this class called unsafe_login.php, which is vulnerable to SQL injection attack. So the idea for a SQL injection attack is, if I put some information here, so for example, I'm going to put, some username and some password, and I hit the login button. What the system is going to do, the web system is going to gather up the information from this form, and then it's going to embed it into a SQL query that gets sent to the database server. And then based on the results coming back from the server, it's going to take some action. So in this case, it said username or password is incorrect. But let's think about more how that actually works and what can go wrong if it's not done the right way. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up a SQL Server Management Studio window, and we'll use, and you don't have these tables on cisdbss.pcc.edu, but I've put those tables on my copy of SQL Server. So I'm going to change the connection here, change connection, and I'm going to go to my local SQL Server instance and use Windows authentication to connect. And now I'm talking to my copy of Internet Movie Database. And I'm not going to show you the tables just yet because we don't know them in theory. But let's say, for example, that I had a table named accounts, and I had a username column and a password column or a password hash column. It might look something like select something from accounts where username is some password and hash is equal to something that the application figures out. So it will take the password, it will come up with a hash value, and then use that to form a SQL statement that gets executed against the accounts table. But what happens, so this thing right here, this is coming out of a web form, and so the user can control how this value gets passed in. And what happens if instead of putting in some password, I instead use a string like, let me copy this. So that's what is supposed to happen. But instead of some password, I use single quote or 1 equals 1 semicolon dash dash. So let's say I type this into the search box instead. Let's look at what happens to this query. Now, if this thing is written in one line, as it usually will be, and then I'm going to paste that expression in for some password. So what do I have now? What I have is select star from accounts where username equals empty or 1 equals 1. And we know 1 equals 1 is true, so this whole expression is always going to be true. And then we have the SQL comment characters that cause the rest of the line to be ignored. And so this looks like just this statement. So let's go ahead and try that on the website and see what happens. So I'm going to leave the password whatever it was, but for username, I'm going to type in single quote or that thing. And this is a really common thing that people will try for injection attacks. And then if I hit login, I'm in. Now you'll notice that it logged me in as Mark, and the reason it logged me in as Mark happened to be that if you looked at the table where the accounts are stored, the first account listed has the username Mark, and the expression that I typed in this expression here basically matched the first account and every other account. And so I'm basically just logged into the first account here. Now, since this page here is just either logging me in or not logging me in, there are some limits to the kind of exploration I can do. But once I'm logged in, I see that there's additional functionality exposed that might also be insecure. So here's a little search box that lets you search for a movie. So for example, let's search for Westworld. And this is doing a wildcard match against the full IMDb, so it takes a little while. But here are all of the titles in IMDb, or the first 50 of them anyway, that include the word Westworld in them. And then SQL syntax for this is going to be something like select top 50 and then some set of fields like name and ID and who knows what all. What do I have in the interface? I have a name. I have, let's see, the ID for that show. I have the type and I have the year. So at least those. So it's going to select some set of columns, like happen to know its title type, from, and then name of some table, like shows, where, and then some other title like, or some other column like title is like, and then probably a wildcard character. Let me go ahead and close that off. And then here's where the title Westworld is going to go. And then another wildcard character. And maybe an order by something, whatever. So the query is going to look something like that. And then this part here, that's what came out of my form. So this query, this select statement, it's going to return 2 or 3 or 4, however many columns in the select statement. This where clause, if it isn't written correctly, what I'm typing in to the form is going to go right in this spot. And so I can do the same kind of thing I did up here, where instead of typing in a value, I instead pasted in some SQL. So this time, instead of Westworld, what if I use single quote, union all, select, and then let's guess there are 3 values coming back. Semicolon, dash, dash. So let's go ahead and see what that's going to do. And I'm going to put this whole thing on one line. And instead of Westworld, I'm going to paste this thing in. So what I got is it's returning the first 50 rows from the shows table, and then it's adding in whatever this select statement is returning. And this is going to work as long as this select statement is returning the same number of columns as this select statement, and the type of each column matches the type of these columns. Now with an empty string, it can do some type conversion, and so it's actually going to give me a little flexibility in terms of what I can match. But the first thing I need to do is, if this is going to work, I need to figure out how many columns this query is returning so I can match it with my select. So step 1 is going to be, I'm going to try closing off the first search term and then union all, select, and let's try 1 semicolon dash dash. And I'm going to actually open the debugger. And you'll see I got an error when I tried to do that. So when you get an error coming back from the server, when you try to do something like that, and instead of getting search results, you get an error coming back from the server or something like that, that means the site is probably vulnerable because it shouldn't be reacting oddly to this weird SQL syntax. So let's actually see what I got back. Let me hit OK again. In this case, it's fetching the data asynchronously, and what I got back from the server is this PHP response that call to a member function fetch all on Boolean in search.php. So that indicates that the PHP probably is vulnerable to a SQL attack, but doesn't give me much more. I know specifically that the problem that I have coming back is probably that this is not returning the same number of arguments as the other select statement. So let me try 2 of them. And then I'm still getting an error. So let me try 3 of them. That gives me an error. So let me try 4 of them. Ah, I didn't get an error from the database that time. And in fact, if I scroll down, I see at the bottom, there's this empty row. So that's exciting. So now I know that there are 4 values in that first select statement. And if I make my new select statement return 4 values as well, I can fetch additional information from the database and it will be displayed in this table. So for example, instead of selecting just empty strings, I'm going to look at what's coming back here and try to guess the types. So it looks like this first thing, well, let's go ahead and try 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's see how that actually affects the results coming back. So I see the thing in the first position. If I hover over this link, I see that it's imdb.com/title/1. So that first thing coming back is being glued into the anchor that I hover over. This third thing here, that's going to be the title, which is a piece of text. So I know the type of the first thing is a piece of text. The type of the second thing is third thing rather is a piece of text. The second thing is this title type. So I know that that's a piece of text as well. And then this third thing, that's a year. So that's probably a number. So if I do ID, and then 2 is the type, and then 3 is the title, this should work. And it does. So it says title, type. If I hover over, it says ID. And then let's try this year thing. So I'm okay if I put a number here, but let's see if it works if I put like just some value. So that's the year. And if I look at this coming back, yeah, it looks like I did get results coming back, but didn't actually get displayed. So let's look down at what I got. Let me hit the OK button again. So I did actually get results back, but they're not getting displayed in this table. So let me try putting a 0 there. Yeah, and now I get title. Oh, and I was getting console errors as well. So, anyways, looks like I get back my results if I just put a number there, but I get back junk if I put a piece of text. So what is this good for? Well, this lets me interrogate the database to find out some stuff. So I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to refine what I know about this query. So what it's actually doing is it's selecting top 50, and then there's some sort of ID. And then item 2 was, what was item 2? I've already forgotten. So ID was the first thing, type was the second, title was the third thing, and then year was the fourth thing. So ID, type, and then title, and then year. Something like that. So I don't know the actual name of these columns. I don't know the actual name of the table, but that's enough for the next step. So what I'm going to use instead is, so there's a table. So the way SQL Server works, and in fact all modern databases work, is they store metadata, that's information about the tables and the columns, in a table. And so what I want to look at specifically is the information schema dot columns. And let's actually look at that. So I'm going to use IMDb. So as a person trying to hack into the system, I don't know this information yet, but I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm going to use IMDb, and I'm going to select star from information schema dot columns. Actually, I think it's column names. It's either columns or column names. Let's see if that works or not. Yeah, so no, it's information schema dot columns. And this actually varies from database to database. Okay, so this is what I get. So I get the lots and lots of stuff. The important ones I want are this table name and this column name, because that's going to give me the name of all the tables in the current database and the name of all the columns in the current database. So I'm going to use union all select, and then here I'm going to use table name, and actually I don't want to use 1 for that because 1 is not visible unless I hover over it, so that's kind of a pain. So I'm going to use 2 and 3 for my information, and then I'm not going to change 4 at all because 4 is numeric. So I have my table name, and then I have my column name, and then I have the number for the 4th column from information schema dot columns. Dash dash. So let's go ahead and paste that thing in here. And that's going to go right here, this title, like that. So what I get now is a select statement that unions in database metadata that should show me the tables and the columns. So let's try that here. And I'm going to go ahead and close that. Oh, so that's exciting. So I see there's a users table. It's called users in all lowercase. There's a hash column, a role column, and a username column. And then title principals, category, and we've seen IMDb before. So these are just the standard IMDb tables and columns that we've been using this term. So this users table, that is a source of additional information. So I have hash and role and username, and I want to look at the values in that table. So this time I'm going to use union all select, and I only have 2 columns where I can put string values, so I can't show hash, username, and role all at once. But I'm going to go ahead and concatenate them. So let's see, this title here is probably long enough. So I have name, yeah, so name, ID, title type. Sorry, let me look at the query. So I know the title is this 3rd thing here, so that's probably going to be fairly long. So I can probably glue the role and the username together into the title column and then put the hash in this title type. Well, so let's try that anyway. So I want, what did I have actually? So let's do role plus colon plus, and then the username is in the username column, all lowercase. And then here I'm going to put the hash value, which is just called hash, and then the 0 from users. So let's try this, and if this works, this is going to give me some real information about what users are there. So let's go back up here and execute. Oh, looks like I got an error. So I don't think it liked me concatenating that thing in yet. So I have an error coming back. So instead of trying for both the role and the username, let's just start with username. And then let's put the role here so it'll be visible if I hover over it. Ah, okay. So that seems to have worked. So what do I get? So this is the username for the accounts, and it knows Mark, which I was the first account. That's why I logged in as Mark before. There's a root account, a test account, Bill Nye account. So actually my students last term created all of these for testing purposes. And then I get a hash in clear text. And then if I hover over it, you'll see in the URL that this is an admin account, this is admin, test is an admin, and then Bill Nye is just a user. If I went ahead and registered a new account, it would get the user role. Some of these have been turned into admin accounts. Marge turned her account into an admin account, and I'll show you how to do that. But then I also know from looking at this hash value, I can get some insight into what kind of hash it is. And if I count up the number of digits, that can help me pin down what kind of a hash value it is. This is actually using MD5, which is not a particularly secure hashing function. And in fact, if I go ahead and just Google this hash value, I get hits. And if I click on the first link, I get a reverse hash lookup for this hash value. And I see that this is the MD5 hash value for password written with an @ and a 0. So that tells you this is not a secure password because the hash value is available on Google. Okay, so now I know that there's an account named Mark who has admin permission, and this is the password. So let's go ahead and log out. And then we'll try logging in with that account. Ooh, and it worked. And now I'm logged in as Mark, and there's administrative interface functions that I had before. If I created a new account, so for example, you know, Fred23, and I register, and then I log into my account, as just a user, I don't get any of those admin functions. If I'm logged in as an admin, I do get them. So let's try just as a regular user, what happens if I try to execute that SQL statement from before. Actually, let's go ahead and... So I did get an error. Oh, yeah, I edited that thing. I changed... Put role here, and then just that. So I see that even just as a regular user with no admin privileges, I can get access to all that information. And here's a new Fred account. If I want to know what password I used for Fred, let's try doing a lookup on that password. And, oh, it's right here actually. So the password I used was Fred23. Yeah, so I created an account with the name Fred23 and I used the password Fred23 and that hash is out there already, so not a particularly good password. So, by the way, the reason we were using salts before when we were doing the discussion group thing is that if you add a salt to the password, the odds of that particular hash being in Google already are virtually zero. So now that I have the ability to create accounts and alter them, let's go ahead and give Fred administrative privileges, so my Fred23 account. And I know that there's a users table with a role column, and that if I set the value of that role to admin, the user is going to be an admin. And so what I'm going to do here is instead of doing the union all, I'm going to go ahead and end my select clause, and then I'm going to update users set role equal admin where username equal Fred23 semicolon dash dash. And I don't get any response coming back. I should probably have gotten an error in the console, which is okay. But let's see if what I did actually had an effect. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to fix that query from before. So this should work. Copy that. Paste it into here. Okay. And then if I scroll to the bottom, see, it says Fred is an admin. If I look at the URL on this side, it says Fred is an admin now. So here was the command I used to change Fred's role. Semicolon, actually, yeah, single quote, semicolon, update users, set role equal admin, where username equals Fred23, semicolon, dash dash. Now, if I were a not very pleasant individual, something I might want to do just to sort of screw with people is I might want to update users set role equal user where username equal root. So I might want to take away the permissions of the root user, or I might want to do that for everybody. If I did this, that would take away root permissions from everybody, set everybody to a user. Or alternatively, I might want to give everybody root permission. So those would all be kind of unpleasant things to do. These would all work right now. Another thing that I might want to do, which would be a little less pleasant, is drop database IMDb. That would be unpleasant. Or, also unpleasant, drop table users. But if I'm going to try to execute this, and got an error probably coming back here, but let's see if that actually did anything. So Westworld. and I got Westworld titles. So my drop table didn't actually work, and my drop database wouldn't actually work either. And the reason is because the database user that I'm accessing the database on does not have permission to alter structure. So they can't drop tables, they can't drop the database, they only have the permissions that they need. Even the admin user only has the permission that he needs in order to run the database functionality. Create account, change the role, change information about the account, and then search for information in the tables. Cannot change the structure of the database.